was asleep. Now I learn a little more every day, and I'm waking the sheep. Gonna say it out loud, say it proud, get it out, 'cause I'm burning inside, cannot hide it no more. I'm a raconteur too. Yeah, I'm a raconteur too. Oh, I'm a raconteur too. All the people in the chat room singing. Oh, I'm a raconteur too. One more time now. Oh, I'm a raconteur too.
Good evening and welcome to Raconteurs News. It's Monday night. It's the 25th of June. Crikey, where did all that part of the year go? And we're live. We're live on raconteursnews.com, on Spreaker. We're also live, I believe, on Facebook and on YouTube Live tonight. We're trying that one out. So appreciate the feedback on how it goes. Hope you've all had a fantastic week, and I've had a pretty good one. I've been doing a bit of chilling out, but also catching up with a lot of jobs and stuff. So I'm joined tonight, thankfully, by my trusty old mate, Jason. How you doing, Jason?
Good evening, Andy. Yeah, I'm all right. Thanks very much, mate. It might just be an hour, and I might have to then give way to Webby for the second hour because I'm still a little bit tired and still get tired easily, and so we'll just see how it goes.
No worries, mate. Did you know your webcam's gone off?
Yes, I did know it's gone off. I turned it off because I thought I was having some distortion.
All right, no worries, mate. No worries. Okay, so tonight we've got what I hope is going to be a very popular show, because we've got a guest on who seems to be getting more hits than most of the other shows, even like a year and close to 2 years on from the first show we did. So I'd like to welcome back to Raconteurs News, Francis Richard Conolly. Good evening, sir.
Hello, Andy. How are you doing, my friend?
Doing very well, and it's great to have you back on. I know we've been trying to set this up for a long time. You've been busy, we've been busy, but we finally made it. So firstly, I mean, I don't suppose there's going to be many people listening who are not familiar with you and your film, but for anyone who isn't, could you just give them a little bit of an outline of how you came to be where you are now?
Ooh, I didn't think this is how we were going to start, Andy, but I'll do my best. It's difficult, this, because I'm so used to everybody, it seems, knowing about
you and your film.
me and my movie. I'll just say this. The movie that is so famous all over the world now, and thanks to your good self, we now know that it's been seen more than a billion times, was something that I started to research over 25 years ago, when the movie called The Men Who Killed Kennedy came out on ITV.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very disappointed with that. Actually, it was a series. It was a two-part thing then. And I'd always been interested in the Kennedy assassination because it so upset my parents and all of the community that I lived in, which was up in Wall's End in Newcastle then. And basically, for the whole of my adult life, I was, trying to read every magazine, every newspaper, looking at every article. Then I got the internet, as so many people did must be about a dozen years ago now. And what kicked it off, what led from there to here today, was the alleged deathbed confession of E. Howard Hunt. Now, that's a name that's pretty familiar to assassination researchers and people who take an interest in the Kennedy assassination. But for anybody who doesn't know, Hunt was a CIA agent, and allegedly on his deathbed, he made this confession that he was involved in the Kennedy assassination. Well, this was what I found out almost the moment that I got broadband at home. So I thought, well, why isn't something mega coming out of this? I mean, he's done it. He said the CIA were involved. I contacted the Washington Post and those journalists who were involved with the story and got no reply. Little by little, I began to realize that the deathbed confession in itself was a hoax. It was disinformation. And it was done in order to mislead people into thinking that Lyndon Baines Johnson was the main culprit. That was what the establishment wanted. After 25 years, they decided that what they were going to do, because Lyndon Baines Johnson is dead and he can't speak for himself, as I've said in the film, that's what they were going to try and do, was just to sort of push things in that direction. And there was a mountain of information on the internet to try and convince people that it was LBJ. Well, at the same time, there was this wonderful journalist who's had a lot of trouble, I believe, in America, called John Buchanan, and several journalists from The Guardian in England, who had started looking into the connections between the Bush family, particularly Prescott Bush, the father of G.H.W. Bush. They'd started looking at the connections between those people and the Nazi Party before the Second World War, and looking at the connections between basically all of American business and all of American finance before the Second World War. And suddenly I found myself in a situation where I had all this information that led up to the Kennedy assassination. And for the first time, it would seem in human history, because of this wonderful man, Robert D. Morningstar, and a piece of research that he did, basically I could see the whole thing, that all of the lead up to it, and what really happened during the Kennedy assassination, who did it, how they did it, why, etc. So if there is anybody out there, and it's a fair enough thing to put to people, if there is anybody out there who still hasn't seen my movie, who doesn't know why it's this international sensation and why it's been seen a billion times, it's called, as you said, JFK to 9/11 thing is a rich man's trick. And it's shocked the world because it's not only told the truth for the first time about who really killed President Kennedy and why, but it's made people see, most importantly, that the reality that the establishment of the whole world, the reality that they give us day in, day out through the television, is not reality at all. It's a completely false reality constructed by a fascist cabal, which is misleading us every single day with every single broadcast that they do. And this is one of the things that we're going to talk about tonight, particularly our old friend, Mr. Trump, who, as everybody knows, is in a lot of trouble. And everybody's, everybody, there's a lot of people who are, let's say, blaming me for the position in which Donald Trump finds himself. So should we talk about that first and what's been happening with?
That sounds interesting.
That was Jason, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah, go ahead, Francis.
Well, the thing is that how I wanted to start this was, I'm sure that everyone, absolutely everyone by now, must have seen the this Kim Jong. Oops, have we got a technical problem? FB Live is down, Jason. Oh, that's okay. No, can you still hear me, Andy? Is that all right?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly.
Okay. Everybody by now must have seen, those pictures particularly from CNN, of Trump and Kim Jong-un, having this historic meeting, this, amazing. I don't know if you agree with this, Andy, but when I saw that, do you remember when we were kids, there was this thing called Captain Pugwash? Remember Captain Pugwash?
very well. Yes.
I'm glad it made you smile. It reminded me of that, because I mean, I think an awful lot of young people who'll see this won't know what I'm talking about. But Captain Pugwash was it was a child's cartoon, and it was one of the last things that they did, where they had the animation technique of having something. I can see my own hands here. I hope this works. Of having something coming from the side like this, and then having something coming in from the side this way, and the mouths on the characters. Do you remember how they used to move? It was just a white board moving like this. And when I saw Trump with that fat Chinese guy, I thought, it's just like Captain Pugwash. And when I did my first live interview, my first TV interview, with Jason Goodman, the first question he put to me was about Trump, and I said very specifically, he's just a clown. But some of the feedback I've been getting makes me think I'm going to have to explain this just a little bit more carefully, and to do it by talking about this historic agreement. What people have to understand is that Trump essentially is exactly the same as Lee Harvey Oswald. He's a patsy. Since the beginning of time, rich men have been hiring other people to take the blame for them. That is what they do. I can't make it any more simple than that. Lee Harvey Oswald is different from Trump in the sense that he didn't know he'd been hired to take the blame. But that is what Donald Trump is there for. He is there to be a performing seal, if you want. He's there to be a puppet. For all the difference it makes, you might as well have Sooty and Sweep running America, because you wouldn't notice a difference. You really wouldn't notice a difference between them and a Donald Trump era. There would be no difference at all, because David Icke recently has put out a video, and he's perfectly right, where he says that Trump essentially is an actor. He's someone playing the part of a role, just as Ronald Reagan did. That is what these people are about. He's there to take the blame. He's just a patsy. And I've got something to show. I've got some more things to show people. And I hope that this will come over, Andy. Now, how clearly I wonder, can you see that? How clearly can you see that?
We can see the picture quite clearly. The writing's a bit more difficult to make out.
Well, what this is, I'll hold it that way, because you can see the nappy, okay? Mm-hmm. This is a picture that I got from a newspaper called the Metro, which nowadays they leave on trains so you can pick it up for free.
Yeah.
Because they know if people would never buy it. And here's this story about Donald Trump. He's visiting Britain soon. And what they're telling people is, there's a committee of people who have got together, and they're going to float this balloon of Donald Trump over Britain while he's here in order to make a mockery of him. And the whole point is, this is meant to make you believe that this proves that we're a free people who can freely criticize Donald Trump. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to do this. But just like everything else, this is a hoax. This is a trick. This is to make you think that we're free and able to criticize. The whole point of Donald Trump is that he's there to be criticized. He's there to be mocked. He's there to be humiliated. And he knows this. That is his job. Now, a lot of people would say, well, why would he agree to this? It's very simple. He chose to sell his soul many years ago for whatever it was that he dreamed of, whatever it was he wanted, and also to sell his soul for a lifetime of security, because that is what they sell people. They say to people, okay, so long as you join us, so long as you make a pact with the devil, from now until the day you die, you'll have security. You won't ever have to worry about money, jobs, anything ever again. And Donald Trump did that sometime back in his past and agreed to be used by the Illuminati, by the oligarchs, however you want to say it, And that is what he is doing now. That is what he is doing now. So, you know, I hope I never have to make it as simple as that again. But that is what all of these people are about. They're patsies, they're clowns, and, well, you know, and what's most important about that particular story is that it's plain that the leader of North Korea is a puppet as well. You know, Kim is obviously controlled by the Rothschilds every bit as much as Donald Trump. So it does prove once again, Andy, that there is a fascist cabal led by the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds, which is controlling all politics on this planet and deceiving the public of the entire world. Do excuse me, somebody's ringing on my phone, and I'm going to have to ignore it. I'll just have to ignore it until it stops ringing. Again, you see, is this the CIA on the phone? Andy? Is this MI5? Who knows? They're going to do this to me forever. If it doesn't ring off, I will. I'll unplug it. In fact, I should have thought to unplug it before it starts, but never mind. It stopped. Thank God. I can't hear you, Andy, now.
Hallelujah. Well, we're having a few problems with Facebook Live as well. So if you're watching on Facebook Live, it just seems to go off. It just it seems to be something that it does at the moment. It goes off after about 15 or 20 minutes. So I'm just going to keep trying, plugging away at that screen, keep trying to get it to go back on. So if you can't hear me, that's why.
Okay. Well, what I'll do, Jason, underneath the Facebook Live, I'll put the YouTube link in there so people can actually listen and see us live on YouTube. So apparently the sound's quite good on there, and folks are enjoying. Well, Heath says he's enjoying the camera switching, and he's telling me I'll pull a different funny face every time I go on camera. But yeah, sorry about the technical issues. We're doing our very best, folks. But we've got Francis here, and we're doing our best to keep things going. So yeah, when you contacted me, you got some new developments you wanted to talk about, and particularly in light of what's been happening with Trump lately.
I think that yeah, to stay with that. Andy, with Trump, with that question, I've actually made a couple of notes here because, and I'll have to apologize to people too. Have to keep looking to the right here. I hope it doesn't spoil anybody's viewing. But as I think a lot of people are aware, there was this big news a few days ago. Where all of a sudden the Republican Party in America went on television, went on national television, on the mainstream media, and there was a congressman called Lee Zeldin, and there was another one called Mark Meadows, and they had about a dozen of them in a line, and they're saying all of a sudden they're going to go after Hillary Clinton. Now, this really threw me. I wasn't expecting this. I have written to Congressman Meadows and Congressman Zeldin about this to ask how they intend to proceed and why it's all taken so long, etc., etc., etc. Now, the broadcast, Andy, was, I thought, rather poor. I don't want to criticize Lee Zeldin, but he spoke rather rapidly, didn't emphasize very well. I do think it's important that we go through, just briefly, the things that Lee Zeldin said. Because if you break it down, if you go into YouTube and find the video, what he says is this. He's talking about misconduct at the highest levels of the FBI. And then in the same breath, he calls them a historic and legendary agency and says that they are exceptional public servants. However, he still says an unbiased investigation is now needed, even though he's just being biased himself in how he's describing them. I would like to, ask Mr. Zeldin to think about this. He then admits that the Department of Justice and the FBI have been, and this is his word, infiltrating the Trump campaign as if they were a spy agency, which is a pretty serious allegation, to put it mildly. And he says further to this that Hillary Clinton has been violating federal protocols. Now, I would first of all want to stop him there and say, okay, great. Why would she want to do that? Why would she want to disguise from the FBI, the CIA, and all the other secret agencies what she is up to? That's very interesting. Apparently, she sent messages on an unsecured server, and that could be construed as treason because she has put the intelligence of the nation in jeopardy. This is what he said on national television, because it was classified information, and Comey, the FBI chief, admitted that it was top secret material. He thinks that Hillary Clinton was trying to dodge the Freedom of Information Act and that she was obstructing justice, which is just about the biggest crime that you can commit, obstructing justice. In trying not to hand over incriminating information, laptops were destroyed. This is the Anthony Weiner thing. Before investigators could get to them. And there was a woman called Cheryl Mills who was offered immunity from protection if she would let Hillary use her laptop, which again makes people think that Hillary Clinton, at the very top of American society, is trying to hide what she's doing from the very people who are there to protect her. I don't see how this could be any more serious. He then says, Zeldin, that Comey allowed FBI agent Peter Strzok to replace the wording grossly negligent in his report, which is legally punishable under federal law, with extremely careless, which isn't. So simply by changing the wording in a sentence, this apparently is all that is needed to completely exonerate Hillary Clinton from all of these crimes. I have never heard anything so ridiculous. This, we are being told, is American democracy. This is American democracy at work. Now, further to this, apparently the Weiner laptop seems to have had criminal emails sent to this woman, Huma Abedin, that a lot of people have heard about, by Hillary. This is the thing that she's most keen, apparently, to keep a lid on. And at the same time, the same report says that Bill Clinton has been paid $500,000 for a speech which he gave to Russian gangsters. I don't know how the Americans can go on when this is what their government is. And I would like to ask Lee Zeldin and Mark Meadows and all of their friends in the Republican Party what they intend to do about this. I mean, I've written to them. I didn't get a reply. What you've got here is quite clearly corruption.
Yeah, I mean, what we've seen since Trump, for my mind, is since Trump was elected and came to office, we've seen something that we've seen before in America, and that thing that we're seeing that we've seen before is the deep state and the kind of public face of that, if you like, being the CIA, is trying to remove a sitting president, a duly elected president. Now, whether you like Trump or don't like him, the election came up with Trump as the winner, and the deep state are trying to remove him. So to me, if that's not treason, I've no idea what is. But also, you find that Hillary, I mean, Hillary seems to be Teflon coated because nothing seems to stick to her.
Exactly.
It was clear to anyone who cared to look, particularly at the Comey investigation, that yes, she committed criminal acts. Yes, she committed treason. Yes, she infringed the Espionage Act. But the Comey investigation quite clearly demonstrated that she was Teflon coated and it wasn't going to stick. I have seen Trey Gowdy grilling the director of the FBI, and I think Gowdy's the one with some actual teeth in there who might actually do something about it if he's allowed. What's your thoughts on Gowdy and his actions?
Well, just to finish it off, Andy, with that bit, what I would like to ask the Republican Party is, I'm delighted to hear that they're going after Trump. And Hillary. I'm delighted to hear that Trump may face impeachment. Doesn't necessarily mean he'll go to jail, but I'm delighted that Trump is facing impeachment. But why is it that the Republican Party is choosing to stick to this angle where the only thing they're interested in is Hillary's emails? Why is it that they're not talking about James Alefantis? Why are they not talking about Pizzagate? I've got a list here that a lot of intelligent researchers will be very familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
Of all of the people who died in mysterious circumstances who are directly connected to the Clintons, it's like the Hillary Clinton kill list. It includes Ron Brown, Vince Foster, Charles Ruff, Mary Mahoney, Daniel Dudko, Judy Gibbs, Sandy Hume, Kevin Ives and Don Henry, who were two boys whose bodies were found on railway tracks. They think that they told too much about what was going on in Mena, Arkansas when they were flying in the drones. James McDougall, Jeremy Border, Alan G. Witcher, John Ash, Seth Conrad Rich, Victor Thorne, Sean Lucas, Joe Montana, Anthony Bourdain. That's an awful lot of dead people, Andy, connected to the Clintons. Why are the Republican Party concentrating on her emails? Unless they come out in the next news interview and say specifically, oh, we're going to get around with this. We are going to investigate Pizzagate. We are going to investigate all these suspicious deaths. And I'm sure you and all of the rest of the truth movement will have to think to themselves, this is just another exercise in containment and control. Everybody knows that the Clinton and the Clinton Foundation is murder incorporated. If Mark Meadows and Lee Zeldin and the Republican Party are really serious about bringing democracy back to America, they're going to have to investigate this side, the serious side of what they've been up to. Otherwise, I don't think they'll be taken seriously. I hope this is the beginning of the end for Trump. But getting rid of Donald Trump is not going to be a step forward if he's simply going to be replaced by somebody who's exactly the same. If we're going to get another Barack Obama, if we're going to get another Jimmy Carter, another Gerald Ford, what's the difference? There is no difference.
Well, for me, I mean, I've been hearing this thing about is Hillary going to be prosecuted for a long time, and for a long time I was thinking, yeah, she needs to be prosecuted. But a lot of people are seeing this statement that they're going to go after Hillary as an end to all the problems. All of a sudden, corruption's going to disappear.
Yeah.
The deep state are going to stop trafficking children, trafficking drugs, overthrowing countries. It's not going to make an absolute penny worth of difference. It's not going to make any difference whatsoever.
Exactly.
We're still being run by a corrupt bunch of puppet masters that are hiding in the shadows behind their puppets. And until we can really address that, I don't think it matters a damn whether we've got Hillary in jail or Trump in jail or any of those, because to be honest, I would say Trump's probably a lot safer pair of hands on the reins than Hillary ever was going to be, because I think there'd be all out war all over the face of the planet if Hillary had got in. But
I don't think, personally, Andy, I don't think so. I don't think it would have made any difference. I think that Hillary has got this Lucrezia Borgia kind of image that, you know, frightens people, like, you know, sensitive people, and they think that it would be worse. But you see, the truth is that it's the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and their friends who are really in charge. And whether there's a war or not, or whether there's child abuse or not, or anything, is up to them. It's you know, at the end of the day, the office of President of the United States is something which the richest oligarchs in this world look at as something that they have to control. That's how they see the office of President of the United States. They are going to have their own man in there. They are going to place in someone who they can control on a daily basis. Every single thing that they do. So on that theme, though, of corruption going right to the highest places, I didn't get the chance, Andy, to see your interview with John Wedger. I've been so busy with other things. And I'm very much aware that, you know, just because it's me, you know, the director of Everything is a Rich Man's Trick, that, you know, maybe just for that reason, one or two people who haven't heard, excuse me, oh, I need a drink. I knew this would happen. It's very warm in here. That one or two people who, excuse me, who, you know, might not normally fasten onto this, you know, just because I'm on, might tune in. And it's very important for everybody to know about John Wedger. There is many interviews. Anybody who's interested in this, in the truth about the child abuse, in the truth about Leon Britton and so many others. I'm going to spell his name for anybody who thinks this is important. It's Wedger. There's a short interview which a woman who I think she must be a civilian worker working for the police, I think. She put it out. It's about 12 minutes long. And it's just John Wedger's voice explaining what happened to him.
Mm-hmm.
And if you'll forgive me, I want to repeat this for anybody who hasn't heard it before. John Wedger was a Scotland Yard detective who they thought wasn't very talented, and they thought he wasn't very tenacious. He turned out to be tenacious and extremely talented, because he found out that there was child prostitution all over London, that there were little girls being controlled with crack cocaine and heroin, and that when he looked into it, the further he looked into it, the more he found corruption in the social services, which was allowing judges, senior judges, people who worked for the BBC, and top police officers to engage in child abuse with impunity. He therefore, John Wedger, made a complaint, an official complaint, and he was invited into the office of a top police officer. I wish he would name it. And the top police officer said to him, all of this that you've discovered, this must never get out. You must never put this out anywhere. And he threatened him, and he said, if you do, I'll throw you to the wolves. You'll lose your home, you'll lose your job, you'll lose your children. And he did. One of his children died. And this was how he was treated. Now, he mentions in the same interview a woman called Maggie Oliver, who has been on the Richie Allen show, if anybody wants to check out that interview. Maggie Oliver was a detective for the Manchester police force. And again, I think they gave her the job because they thought she was just an ordinary housewife. She turned out to be a brilliant detective who found out that there were Asian gangs grooming children for sex all over the Midlands, basically, Rochdale, Rotherham, everywhere. And Maggie Oliver said that the more she tried to expose it all, just as with John Wedger, the more she was held back. And Richie Allen made exactly the right conclusion when he was interviewing Maggie Oliver, which is that the establishment know that Muslim gangs all over the country, that Asian men are grooming little girls for sex, but they're not doing anything about it. They're not making a task force to go after these men because they know that if they did, they would unearth the child abuse that's being done by the senior judges and the top policemen and all these top military officers and things like that. So this is an insight into how the upper class in this age have created a pedophile network to service them, and they're using their power at the very top to stop anybody from investigating it. And I do want people to look into this because all of this stuff about the Jimmy Savile investigation and the cover-up makes sense once you look into the John Wedger thing. And Andy, because I didn't get the chance to see it myself. I mean, when you had John Wedger on, did he come out with any more information that was really sort of mind-blowing to you?
I haven't seen the other interviews that John's done. What I try and do is not listen to too many other people's interviews, because I find if I do, it kind of influences the way I go more than it would if I were to just do it cold, But
Yeah.
Paul, you've listened to quite a bit of John's stuff, and you were the main man with John. So what were your findings on that?
On what? Sorry, can you just repeat the question, Francis?
I'm wondering if John Wedger gave any new information to you, Paul, that he hasn't given to other people, because in the interviews that I've seen with him previously, he did say that all of the people whose names were mentioned in connection with the Westminster child abuse, like Leon Britton and Jana and people like that, he said that they had them bang to rights dozens of times. The police knew exactly what was going on, and they just didn't prosecute them. I just wondered if he'd mentioned any more names or any more information of that kind when you were interviewing him.
No, because there's legal action going on with the Metropolitan Police right now. He wouldn't talk on air about what names, but I'm pretty sure that he has got some big names down there. But no, he didn't bring any new names into the interview because, as I said, being live with a legal case going on, it's the last thing that he wants, to be fair. That.
Right. Okay. Well, at least, I do thank you for letting me bring that up, though, Andy and Paul, because I want people to do their own research in John Wedger, who I must say is a very, very, very brave man. He really is a very brave man.
I concur with that.
A very brave man, indeed. So, what are we talking about now?
Well, Francis, I mean, I've watched your film. I was, I'm a big JFK fanatic as well. That was the first conspiracy theory that I ever even bothered to look at, and that was when I was about 8 years old and watching a BBC Two documentary with my dad. So, I mean, I've read. Well, I'd like to think I've pretty much researched it to the nth, but your film came at it from different tacks as well. So, I mean, if you want to go back to that, we can talk about that a little bit if you like.
Actually, you know what I'd like to talk about now, Paul? And this might throw a few people. They may even think, oh my God, no, I didn't turn on to listen to Francis Richard Conolly to hear him talk about this. But I think we should talk about the World Cup. And I'll tell you why. I mean, I do think that, gentlemen, that what we're here for is to give an alternative view of things. And we all know that if there's one thing that Gary Lineker and Alan Shearer and all the rest of them, Danny Murphy, there's one thing they're never going to say is the truth, which is that football's bloody boring. Now, why do I want to go into this? You'll see this in a moment. I have barely watched the last couple of World Cups because I personally think that football is in a real state, it's in a real mess. Because if you sit down and watch a game of international football now, that it's just going to be, 90% of the time meant passing the ball up and down the halfway line. And whenever I watch modern football, I can never help but recollect an amazing game that I saw when the World Cup was playing in South Korea, where Portugal, I think it was, managed to get 2 men sent off. And then I think it was the South Koreans that they were playing. They managed to get a man sent off after that. So it was 10 against 9. And it became this fantastic game that looked just like a schoolboy football game. It was end to end. It was wonderfully entertaining. And it was great to watch. And I do think football will die if it continues to go the way it is going. And I think that rugby will as well. People often admit that rugby sevens is a lot more entertaining to watch than the 15-a-side game. And all of us have, moments where we fantasize and say, if I was God, what would I change? I would change football by, first of all, getting rid of the offside rule, which has always been, a joke as far as I'm concerned. Why it was ever invented, I'll never know. It just compresses the space on the pitch. And I would change football to having 10-a-side in league games, but 9-a-side in international games, because that would give the players who can play room to play. And the game itself would be much more entertaining. And I also think that football itself has got a real big issue in this country. I've talked to a few people about this, whereby you've now got a situation. I mean, we're having a World Cup at this moment, where it's England against France and against Germany once again. And when you go to watch your local team, it's supposed to be your local team. And yet we're in a situation whereby it's possible now that someone could go to watch Arsenal or Tottenham and find the whole French side or the whole Brazilian side playing for that team without a single British player in it. And there are no British managers left in the Premier League. Are we going to see the day where there are no English players at all playing English football? That's a big issue as well. So, that is my 2 pence worth. I think football isn't worth watching now. It's a boring game. It's a very stale game. Every match looks the same. But the reason that I'm bringing it up is that people still don't realize that the function of football and everything else is to distract us from what's important, and that it wouldn't be allowed if it gave people, if football was like an early Bob Dylan concert every time, and it gave people an insight, if it gave them knowledge as to what the world really is, it wouldn't be allowed. It is allowed because the ruling class use it all the time in some way. I wonder if, like me, Andy, you've thought to yourself, is there going to be a phony terrorist incident in this World Cup? I wonder, what do you think, Paul? Do you think that's going to happen? I think it's very possible.
Just before Paul answers that, Francis, can I just jump in? We've got a little bit of feedback from the YouTube Live, and apparently we're getting a little bit of feedback from your end, Francis. I don't suppose you've got a pair of earphones or headphones handy, have you?
Not on me, no, sorry.
No, okay. Any chance you could just turn your speakers down a little tad? That might help.
I don't think that there's that facility on here. Would it make a difference if I go a little bit further back?
That might help. We'll see. Okay, Paul, go ahead with your thoughts on what we need to do with football, because I'm exempt from this one, Paul. The last game of football I watched, I was about 12. So
yeah, this would be like an F1 question to me, wouldn't it? Well, I love me football, Francis. I've been obsessed with football since, well, as far as back as I can remember, both playing and otherwise. I kind of agree with you on some points. I think the arse fell out of the game when the money started to come into it, because they realised just what an opiate football is. That's why the money's been pumped into it. This is the bread and circuses. This is nothing new. And the fact that it's an opiate for so many millions all over the world, it's that distraction, what you mentioned. But that people don't look at it that way. People look at it as a game. But I mean, I was sat in a pub the other day, and when England scored, I went, oh, goal. Now, normally, 15, 20 years ago, I'd be, yes, I've been falling off chairs, falling off tables, everything with everybody else. But to me, it is just a game because of a lot of things that I've been through, experiences and stuff. It makes you appreciate. It makes you appreciate more rather than just being switched off for those 90 minutes and being obsessed with the game. But it was the same. You mentioned rugby. Well, that has now leached into not only rugby but cricket, darts, F1. All these millions are spent to entertain people, and it's that distraction. So it is. You're right in one sense, but as to what you can do with the football, I personally, having played the game, I like the offside rule. It makes the game a bit more tactical. You've got to play clever. You can't just go and stand. As when I was growing up, we'd call it babbylining. You can't just go and stand with the goalkeeper and have a chat and then shout for the ball because a player's got to stand with you. So I think it would disjoint it. But if you take the money out of the game and let it just be about enjoyment and not hinge on points and like it used to be. I mean, we were talking about a World Cup game with a Scottish fella, and he was talking about Archie Gemmell going round 11 players and scoring one. And I said, I remember an England game where Billy Bremner was kicked about 7 times, and he stopped running with the ball and turned round and chased the player and booted him right up his arse. Now, I say go back to that. That was a real honest game, that, where it wasn't about money. It wasn't about how you looked. It wasn't about using different lotions and advertising. That was what, for me, has ruined football. So I agree with you on some points, but having played the game, I enjoy the game itself. It's a beautiful game to watch for me. I love watching it, but obsessed about it, buying things from the club. No, I'm a season ticket holder, and I can't even justify that anymore.
The reason, Paul, I wanted to bring it up, and once again, I'm wondering.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm going to walk out if you put that rag up in front of this camera, mate.
No, Paul. No. You're going to like this one.
Not on that rag. I won't. Just tell me about it.
No, this is from 4 years ago. Can you see that?
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. This was a free newspaper that, and believe me, Paul, I hate the sun just as much as you do. This was a free newspaper that was sent to 22 million homes at the time of the last World Cup.
I remember it.
This is what the World Cup was really all about. Because the MI5, the Information Bureau, whoever we want to call them, they constructed this at that time to try and use the wave of national fervour to promote the royal family, as usual. On the first page inside, it says this. Look, can you read that? Queen Elizabeth, and they swear up and down that they've had a poll, and that a whopping 39% voted for Her Majesty in the poll. It's the best Britain of all. Sir David Attenborough apparently was in second place, and nobody else even came close. You know, it says on the front, this is England. This is propaganda. And this is what our ruling class do.
Again, it's nothing new, is it, Francis? We've lived all this, we know it. But you try and tell it to the people who are buying that thing.
Well, the thing is, it's funny you say that, Paul, because don't you think there is some hope in the fact that the Sun was up at 4 million, wasn't it, in the early 80s? That was the peak that it reached. It was 4 million copies a day. Is that right, Andy, I think? It was 4 million copies a day, and it's dropped now to just about 1 million. And the nearest rival is the Daily Mirror, which is 500,000. And to me, once again, it underlines the fact that people are more and more giving up mainstream media and getting rid of it. And it's only, very old people, grandmothers and grandfathers, I think, who are buying newspapers and watching TV at all. There was a man who I came across in Grimsby. I can't remember what I was doing there about a year ago, who told me that he'd just done some research into the watching habits, the viewing habits of young kids, and that young kids are watching news and they're never watching mainstream media because they're doing everything on their smartphone. You see. So I do think there's some hope in that that there's this huge decline with the Murdoch press, and I actually do wonder as well how much money is being spent day in, day out supporting the Murdoch press, because I know he loses millions every day. And okay, we're talking about oligarchs who are trillionaires, but even they can't afford to lose 25, 50 million a day forever. Not even they can do that. So I think there's some hope in that.
I have to agree. I mean, not that crap thing that you just held up, but there's people who I work with who buy papers and still look at mainstream news and stuff like that. But because they're friends with me, they always find out stuff that they never even bothered looking at, and they would never even look at the angle from it. I get a lot of thanks and abuse for it, really. It's when you're looking at the mainstream now, you're right. There's a lot of the younger generations now who are not bothering with that. But on top of that, there's still that many that are cemented into it. I mean, I work with quite a few young people, and they speak in sound bites, many of them. Some of them are, really intelligent, really quick, but you can't have a conversation with them because they've not got the social skills. They don't know how to talk to people. And in my job, you have to talk to people. Every job I've had, I've always worked with general public, and there is nothing worse than general public, Francis. They are a weird bunch of people, the general public, whatever you want to go off on tangents with that. But in general, they are uninformed. They speak in sound bites. They talk about Coronation Street, Love Island, I think, things at the minute. I've never watched television for over 10, 12 years now, and I have a lot to talk about, but you have to pick and choose who you find those conversations with. But I have seen the tide turn. I mean, 10 years ago, when I started my journey through all this crap, it felt like it was on your own. And I'm sure when you've been doing your historical research, Francis, and you put stuff out there, and people have said, "Oh, this is making me think too much. That must be wrong," because that's the first thing people do. If you're challenging the paradigms, if you're challenging what they've based their life on, and you're showing it possibly to be a lie, they will attack you. They will do everything. I was best man at my mate's wedding. Doesn't speak to me anymore because I have a different outlook on life compared to what he is. But I have had people who've come to me and said, "Hey, that stuff you were talking about 8 years ago, yeah. Hey, well, I've just read this. This is happening." I said, "I know." He said, "Well, how did you know?" I said, "I read. I'm not magic. I didn't have any of this given to me. I went and read something." And they tell you. I mean, Francis, you've read all those historical documents. When you go back to the declassified stuff, they are telling you what they did, weren't they?
I missed that last part of that, Andy. I missed that last part of that question. Sorry, what was that?
I was saying that the historical papers that you've researched over the JFK stuff and such, the declassified documents, they tell you what they are doing in their own white papers. It's not a big surprise. And in an age of information, ignorance is a choice. You can go and find this information. You've gone and done it with it.
You couldn't express that better, Paul. I mean, the thing is, I've always said, Andy and I, this is one of the first things that we talked about when Andy first interviewed me. I personally think that where you have people who are like choosing to be ignorant, as you say, it's because of fear of embarrassment. It's people who know that they don't have much intellect. They fear that they're going to look stupid because they have got background knowledge.
Yeah, it's scary to have a different point of view to the masses, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that is what holds most people back. But as you know, with what you said earlier, I do think that the tide is turning with this now. Just in the last few weeks and even in the last few days, I do a guided tour of York, where I live. It's a history tour, and I was showing around this wonderful man who's a doctor. He's asked me very specifically not to reveal his name because he wants to protect his family. But I was showing him his son around York on this guided tour. And as I was going through the city, there was at first there was a group of Germans, and they recognized me, and it was, oh, Mr. Conolly, you know, why can't we see your movie in German? And then I was waylaid by a group of Austrians, and then some French people, and then a bunch of Australians cornered me when I went up, you know, the Clivett's Tower, and there was a lady who I met on the train, a very nice lady called Claire, who I don't know, I don't want to get choked up here, but she was just beautiful. She was so encouraging. I get lots and lots of letters saying, you know, Mr. Conolly, keep going, don't give up. It's vitally important. And tell, you know, Andy Young, and tell all his friends, tell Raconteurs News, tell all of them that they've got to keep going as well. That, you know, fight on. It's what's got to happen, because, you know, we will win in the end. And I am finding that more and more people. I mean, the doctor who I showed around York, you couldn't get over how well informed he was. It was like a wet dream for me. He knew exactly what I would want him to know, and he was giving it all to his son. People are waking up, and I think that, you know, I've always said that people would rather not think, but if they have to, because they think they have to in order to survive, then they will. And I wrote a letter to the head of ITV, who I later met, Tom Giles, the commissioning editor for ITV. We had a lunch together in London. I'm sure he remembers. And in this letter, I said to him, you know, that people are like worms in some ways, because they'd much rather hide in an environment underground that they're used to. But if it rains, the worms will all come to the surface. I tried to use that analogy. They will come to the surface if their environment becomes too difficult. And by the same token, people will think if they feel they have to. And I think that it's got to the point where they're beginning to realize that they have to. There's so much on a day-to-day basis about fracking. There's so much on a day-to-day basis about the environment coming apart. People are getting this thing about the child abuse. It is filtering across. And there's, you know, more and more people are seeing through the phony terrorism as well. So, you know, I do think we're getting there. I do think that bit by bit it's making a difference.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, again, going back to John Wedger, talking to him about it, the people that I've now been put in touch with, who I'm now just speaking to, the information that these people have got together, and evidence, not just information, not just witness statements, but evidence. And I've only been privy to a very small amount of it so far. And the names that are coming into this are more, you're going up the scale of more well-known people, because everybody knows there's something wrong. The people who've got know there's something wrong, but they know that they're not safe either. I always go back to the Martin Niemöller quote. Do you know who Martin Niemöller is, Francis?
Exactly what you're talking about, my friend. I've heard many different versions of that. But, you know, I was asked once, why do you do what you do? And the way that I like to say it is like this. And straight away people will know what I'm talking about. But the way that I like to have it done is, what was it, on the Monday, they came for the trade unionist.
Yeah.
I wasn't a trade unionist,
So I said
didn't say anything. On the Tuesday, they came for the black man. I wasn't a black man, so I said nothing. On the Wednesday, they came for the civil servant. I wasn't a civil servant, so I didn't complain. On the Thursday, they came for the Jew, and I wasn't a Jew, so I said nothing. And then on the Friday, they came for me. And when I looked around,
There was nobody left.
there was nobody left to speak up for me.
Well, I think.
Are we going to reach that day? That's the question I want to ask the world.
Well, I believe.
Anybody who listens to this, are you going to wait for that day that there's nobody left, like these two wonderful men who are interviewing me now? Are you going to wait for the day that there's no one left to speak up for your rights? Because that day is coming.
For me, at the very least, what I try and say to people, because you're probably not aware of any of the stuff I've done, Francis, but I work with mortgages, bills of exchange. Oh, I've got bills of exchange in Andy. How long is that since I brought that up? Bills of exchange, utility bills, things like that, and how the economy works. And people are interested, and they actually know what I'm talking about. I understand that. I understand how you've explained that with it. But what can I do about it? I've got a family. I've got 4 kids. I can't go risking this, that, and the other. I said, I will. I'd never ask you or advocate somebody to go and not pay bills, even though you can't pay bills in a debt-based economy. The fact is that they've got to learn it, pass it on to the children. I always, one of my biggest bugbears is that kids who go to schools like Eton, they are taught the Bills of Exchange Act by the age of 11 because they are being groomed into being these bankers that are stealing all the equity from this country, from the people. And, you know, I thought, naively, when I show people that they are not liable to pay for their utility bills because of this, in .gov.uk legislation, I thought they would have welcomed it and everybody would go, yay! No, not at all. I was a thief, I was this, I was that, I was all kinds of names because people have morals and principles. Where do we get those morals and principles? From the same people that are stealing everything.
Yeah. Well, Paul, you've brought up something that actually leads me nicely into something that I asked Andy if you'd mind if I could get into.
Just Francis, just hold that thought for 1 second then, because I've got an eye on the time here, Andy. What do you reckon?
Have a quick music break so we can either grab a cuppa or pay a quick visit, call of nature if we want. So, okay with you, we'll just stick on a quick tune and we'll be back. 3 minutes, okay for you guys?
Make it 5. Make it 5, Andy.
Okay, I'll find another tune to stick on after it then. Okay, we'll be back in about 5 minutes, folks. Stick with us, and you're listening to Raconteurs News, and the guest tonight is Francis Richard Conolly of JFK to 9/11. Everything's a rich man's trick fact. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Hear this. Gonna get rain, gonna have sunshine, gonna chase rainbows and chase the clouds away. And we're gonna make people, gonna make music, and we're gonna have a good time. Cause we're gonna get high, 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 high.
I'm super fly with the rhymes I supply. Float like a butterfly high up in the sky. Sting like a bee before I touch the ground. Like Holly in his prime. Yeah, I'm loud and proud. So you can another best, another twist before I get to it. Don't need to practice. What's gonna be, gonna be. Put me on your track list. I send it to a hit list. Yeah, I know you like it. Come on, hit the back seat. I put it all in. Put your hands in the air. You feeling this? Oh yeah, I'm feeling this real vibe. I'm living it, paying bills till I make a meal. It ain't a dream, I need the cream, you know what I mean. I'm fuckers, man, can't let them luckless, man. I'm gonna make it like a new bit, new whip. Don't know about this, you must be new this. I thought you knew this, I'm forever doing this, girl.
I don't wanna take you back, 'cause we're gonna fall again. I don't wanna take you back, can we just be friends? I don't wanna take you back, 'cause we're gonna fall again. I don't wanna take you back, can we just be friends?
Gonna get rain, have sunshine. Gonna chase rainbow and chase the clouds away.
Yeah.
And we're gonna meet people.
Hey.
Gonna make music.
Come on.
And we're gonna have a good time. We're gonna get high, 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 high.
Punch to the microphone, boo, boo. I do what I want. What the hell you gonna do? Mic check, 1, 2, 1, 2. I represent this is what I do to anyway. I'm to you. Best beware, open your ears to the truth as I push. I'm the man. I list the plan, fool. Any bands that I kick is for your mind, fool. I'm a pimp, so I be up in your mind. Don't be a lame or chick up in this rap game. What's the use of the fame when you ain't paid? I go back to a ticket when I got laid. Got paid, got laid for the rhymes I laid. On the regular, I flow spectacular, original. My dope is natural, straight out the underground. Yeah, I'm a
Gonna get rain, gonna have sunshine, gonna chase rainbow and chase the clouds away. And we're gonna meet people, gonna make music, and we're gonna have a good time. Cause we're gonna get high, 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 high.
You're listening to Andy Young and Jason Holmes on RaconteursNews.com. Stay tuned for more untwisted, unsweetened news. And definitely no bingo.
Hello, this is Heath Dreft, and I listen to Raconteurs News every Tuesday night, 8 till 10 on autonomousmedia.net. Making a goddamn nuisance of myself. With my nose in everybody's business. Oh God, will I ever learn? Cause it always backfires on me. I can't control myself no more. So I don't understand, never go out. Every day is trouble, every day is trouble for me. Is it my voice or my face or the clothes that I wear? Cause something's getting me noticed in a bad way. I must say, I ain't looking for no shit, but it finds me. Particularly when I'm out driving. Slow down, you know, it's a runabout, mate, not a racetrack. How the fuck did you pass your test? You're a pest, you got my heart beating in my chest. No wonder I'm so irate. Why don't you fucking indicate? I wish I had a shit gun fired at your window, bitch. Making a goddamn nuisance of myself. Poking my nose in everybody's business. Oh God, will I ever learn? Cause it always backfires on me. I can't control myself no more. So I don't just stay and never go out. Every day is trouble, every day is trouble for me. So I drive and get my shit done quick. Don't wanna waste too much time on the streets with the bricks. I know they're gonna take my energy. Give me road rage, then I commit a felony. Score some weed, then I drive home readily. Hang my car keys and I calm down steadily. Plays on my mind when I let them get to me. Load up on some roller J, get stone, write a melody. Start getting high, having less of the hunches. Put it on hold while I answer the munches. Get about the dicks while I'm grinding the bunches. Really need to learn just to roll with the punches.
Algún día me perdonan, aquí te estaré esperando. Porque yo era muy feliz cuando tú abrías los ojos. Andaba por la noche y andaba muy perdido. Y de tus ojos me mostrarán el camino, caminar. Porque yo era muy feliz cuando tú abrías los ojos.
Making a goddamn nuisance of myself. Poking my nose in everybody's business. Oh God, will I ever learn? Cause it always backfires on me. I can't control myself no more. So I don't just stay and never go out. Every day is trouble, every day is trouble for me. Every day is trouble, every day is trouble. Making a goddamn nuisance of myself. Poking my nose in everybody's business. Oh God, will I ever learn? 'cause it always backfires on me. I can't control myself no more. So I don't just stay and never go out. Every day is trouble. 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 Every day is trouble for me.
Whoop. Andy.
Unmute your mic, Andy.
Welcome back to Raconteurs News. It's a bit of an interesting one tonight. We're going out live on YouTube Live for the first time ever. And we've had a few hiccups. It looks like we're getting there. Apologies for the music clipping a bit at the start there. But I was notified by the guy who actually made that fabulous music, Heath, in our chat room. And I turned it down. Hopefully it was a bit better towards the end. Thanks for your fabulous tunes, Heath. And I've heard the first one from your new band, and it sounds absolutely terrific. I will drop the links in there so we can share it around. And looking forward to hearing more from your new band. So that is awesome. We're joined tonight by the amazing Francis Richard Conolly. I'm not calling him Richard tonight.
Have you been practicing that, Andy?
No, I haven't. You know, I didn't think I'd need to. I thought I'd really got it right in my head. Funny enough, when we had a little chat on Sunday, just to check your webcam and everything was okay, lo and behold, I called you Richard, didn't I? But
I'll forgive you. You're so lovable.
Mate, don't worry about it. You keep saying I should keep on muting your mic, but you keep doing it. Just crack on.
Yeah. Paul, you got a couple of things you wanted to bring up in regards to John Wedger. You've had a couple of reminders in the chat room, haven't you?
Yeah, sorry. I think I missed it, Richard. I mean, Francis. Okay.
I knew he'd say that. I knew he'd try that.
I thought you only asked about names, but John alerted me to the fact that you're asking about any other information. I'm not sure if you were aware that John, when he was headed up the unit, they promoted him because they knew he could dig. They just didn't realise how well. And what he discovered was that paedophiles were beating the sex offenders register by living on canal barges because it wasn't in legislation. Were you aware of that?
Yeah, I know. Where did I hear this? Who told me this? I've come across, and I cannot think. So many people these days.
It's hard to keep track on where you get the info from sometimes.
Yeah, it's very, very hard to keep track of it. But it is interesting that, though, isn't it? That if you live on a canal barge, I've actually come across a few people who've lived on canal barges in order to pretty much, drop out of society, and without having an address, they stop.
Exactly.
The establishment.
Exactly, they're not registered anywhere. That was the whole point to it.
But it shows you, though, Paul, doesn't it, how clever these paedophiles could be.
Well, to be honest, Francis, you wouldn't believe how clever they can be. I mean, if you find most, as John was saying, you find most paedophiles, they get caught. A lot of them are older because they get caught later because it's all about the grooming. It's all about how these people can hold down any job. You wouldn't even know some of these people, apart from the stereotypical ones that do look like what people would say, but they don't all look like that. You know what I mean? Another one John brought up as well was the Rosie and Jim. Do you remember the Rosie and Jim children's television show?
I do, yeah.
That was he was intimating that was written for and by. That's how I took it.
It's funny you say that.
Subject to the child abusers living on canal barges. We have come across that information before, and I'm pretty sure the one who brought it up was Mickey Summers, because I know that's something they've been all over with the Nottingham group there that's working on that.
Yeah.
Andy, if you don't mind, I'd like to just jump straight into the main thing that I wanted to do tonight. Remember I mentioned about gangster values?
Yeah.
And you'll have to stick with me over this one, gentlemen, because this isn't going to be easy to talk about. And if I lose my thread, by all means, interrupt me. It's just that looking at what America has gone through since the Kennedy assassination, the fact that it happened, the fact that his brother was assassinated, and everything that's happened in between, and now we've got Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton and Pizzagate and one thing and another. A lot of people, myself included, have wondered many times whether it's fair to say that every American has got a gangster inside them. It seems to the rest of the world. I mean, Bill Bryson has a book, a brilliant book called Mother Tongue. And it was interesting to him when he was doing his research to discover that all over the world in different languages, people will inevitably call any kind of confidence trick American con, because they always associate confidence tricks and gangsterism generally with Americans. And so, you do wonder why that is. And you wonder why it's perpetrated and how it's perpetrated, generation after generation after generation. So there is something that I would like our American friends and the rest of the world to think about. And it's this. I want people to think, Americans in particular, how many times they've sat down to watch a movie and they've heard somebody in the movie say, you've got to remember, good guys finish last. And everybody uses everybody. And shit happens. Because in America, it's dog eat dog, and it's all about being the last man standing. And always remember, you must never apologize because it's a sign of weakness. And you don't make friends, you make money. And if you want love, you buy a dog. And the one that's my favorite, if you snooze, you lose. Now, Americans will be sat at home and they'll be thinking, well, yeah. So what? That's what we hear in the movies all the time. It's just a movie. Mr. Conolly's obviously been watching too many movies, and why not? He's a screenwriter. It doesn't influence public behavior to hear these kinds of things over and over and over. Well, I'd like to look at that question, if I may. Firstly, by examining the life of Richard Kuklinski. You must have heard of Richard Kuklinski, gentlemen?
Yeah.
Anybody who wants to check this out?
Francis, can you explain who he is?
I'll do that. Richard Kuklinski was a contract killer for the mafia. He worked mainly for the Mayo family in New York. And his personal history was, the most salient point, was that he had two abusive parents. His father was a brakeman on the railway. This is in the early 40s and going into the 50s when Kuklinski was a child. And he was a brute with a filthy temper, and there are pictures of Richard Kuklinski as a little boy. And he was a really skinny, tiny, angelic little thing. And Kuklinski described how his father would come in the door and he would only have to look at him. And this huge man would beat him up with his fist. And when he complained about it to his mother would hit him with a broomstick. And so he had this hideous physical abuse of this little boy. And he was an altar boy, and showed you pictures of him, with the Christian garb on, one thing or another. So it was all very terrible. It was all very sad. But what got me was this. He described that as he became a teenager, he grew very tall. And because he received so much physical abuse at home, he had no desire for more physical conflict when he went into the street. So he used to avoid any kind of violence if he could. And of course, the gangs in the street where he lived picked on him for that reason alone. He was tall, so he was very noticeable, and the kids in the street used to pick on him because they knew he wouldn't fight back. And as he's telling this to Dr. Park Dietz, he said, it's absolutely true what they say. Good guys really do finish last. And I thought, now that's interesting. He's retailing these things that he's heard in the movies so many times. And he said that one day he just had enough. He got hold of an iron bar. He attacked 4 men with this iron bar. And he said not long after that, he was in a fight in a bar, and he killed someone with a cue stick. And that was the beginning of his killing career. Now, a lot of people would say, well, okay, so what? There's one psycho, there's one nutcase who's picked up, gangster values from the television. It's not important. Well, this is where I'd like to jump off Kuklinski to a program that I saw, must be 20 years ago. This was when I was trying to be a professional screenwriter myself. And I was actually trying to write for Star Trek. And my work was stolen. I was plagiarized. And because I was trying to be a screenwriter, when there was this program on, it was on BBC Two, about 2 British screenwriters in Hollywood, I decided to watch it. And they talked to these 2 men who'd been hired to do some writing on a Mel Gibson movie. So in comes the interviewer and he says, well, okay, lads, you've got your dream. Here we are in sunny Los Angeles. You're being paid to write movies. How's it going? And they turn around and say, well, we're hating every minute of it. Terrible, it's horrible. We can't wait to get out of here. So the interviewer was very surprised and said, well, why is that? And they say, well, it's not working out at all the way that we thought it would, because all we do is sit in a room all day long thinking of new ways to kill people. Because when the company, who I think were Universal, hired us, the first thing they said was, people are used to seeing people shot, stabbed, machete, whatever, on the screen, and they want to see people killed in original ways. So that's what these 2 men were doing. I showed you the clip that they had written for the Mel Gibson movie, which was this man on a golf course. And you know how they have those rotating things that spray the water on the golf course at night. And what they did was they wrote a scene where these were filled with petrol, with gasoline. Somebody threw a match and this poor man on the golf course gets torched to death. And this is what they were being paid to write. Now, again, people say, well, why is that matter? What's this going to do with Richard Kuklinski? Because this meant a lot to me when I saw this. Dr. Park Dietz was asking for more information about what he was like as a young man. And he said that Kuklinski came out with this anecdote about one night in New York when he was in a bar, and a man who was quite short insulted him, and he was very loudmouthed. Richard Kuklinski didn't like that because he said it reminded him of his father. But he said this man was in a big group of men. I think he was with about a dozen other men. And Kuklinski, even though by now he's like 6'5" and 20 stone, didn't think he was up to tangling with all of them. So he tracked this man. He says he tracked him from bar to bar as they were all getting a bit more drunk. And he said that they wound up at a bar that was really overcrowded. There were people hanging at the door. But when this man got to the door, and he needed to go to the toilet right there, he told all his friends to go inside, and he said, I'll just go in the alley. And this was how he described what happened next to Dr. Park Dietz. He said that as this man was having a pee in the corner, he took a clothesline from the alley that was hanging above his head. And then he says to Park Dietz, Maybe this is original, maybe not. I'm not sure. What I did was I put the clothesline around his neck and threw him over my shoulder, so I was like the tree hanging him. So you have a man there who's a classic American psycho, and his great concern in his daily life is finding original ways to kill people. And you're going to tell me that there's no influence of Hollywood and all the crap that I've just laid out, everything about good guys finishing last, everything about everybody using everybody, kill or be killed, that this doesn't have an influence? He went on to say all this. He went on to say the worst thing that I've ever heard a man say in my whole life. He said that he threw this man over his shoulder and he felt him die against his own body, and it felt great. He said, I felt him die and I got my relief. I got my, a total euphoric feeling from feeling him die against my own body. Now, to me, that is entirely an American crime, an American outlook. And it's all come from, I believe, the American mainstream media, which constantly passes out these gangster values to the public, because they know that in a gangster society, that being the dirtiest people, that they will always rule. And a lot of Americans might be watching this and thinking, well, okay, Mr. Conolly, what can we do about it? What I'd like to say to America is this. You've got to try now and start now to create a community where good guys finish first. Because if you don't, America is going to end. Gentlemen, I thank you for letting me say that. I really do.
No, it's there's a definite agenda. Andy, your mic's muted, mate.
Sorry, I keep muting it because we got that feedback problem. What John Hull is asking in the RN chat room is, could you possibly spell this man's name? He wants to do a bit of digging himself. Frank.
Kuczynski, Andy?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Kuklinski. And if he wants to do any research into him, the best thing to put into Google is conversations with the Iceman.
Yeah, I was just going to say Iceman. Yeah,
but he was known as the Iceman because he used to freeze the bodies of his victims in order to, to hide the time of death. That was how he used to do it. But his story, and as I say, that interview that Dr. Parkdeeds does with him, I've never seen anything in my life as macabre as that. And I would say to it, you see, I'm very.
He's very real, isn't he, Francis? In his interview, he's very matter of fact, isn't it? It was as if like.
Does your heart break for him in a way? Does your heart break for him in a way?
Yes, in the fact that a child isn't born like that and goes through all that torture. And this is where I will agree with you about there's a definite agenda that is put through the entertainment industries. There's unbelievable amounts of evidence to show all this. I mean, you're using one example there, so people can easily go, oh my God, there's one psychopath and there's all this conspiracy behind it. That's what people do. But when you look at the bigger picture, Francis, that's exactly what is happening. Now, Hollywood alone and computer games and stuff like that alone does not make these psychopaths. It doesn't do it. It can't do it, because my daughter's when she was 7 years old, she thought there was nothing funnier on Grand Theft Auto than going up to a car park and sniper rifling the heads off prostitutes. She thought that was hilarious. 7 years old, she didn't understand what that connotation meant. When she's older, does she think that sniper rifling prostitutes is a good thing to do? No, she doesn't. But if all you've seen is torture and evil, it creates a damaged psyche that I've seen it so many times. I work with people like this that they fixate on something that makes some kind of sense to them.
Paul, I've got another anecdote for you. As you've brought that up, because I'm really glad you brought that up. I don't know if you've heard this story, but there was a young man in Los Angeles who told this story to the police, and he kind of intimated that computer games might have been responsible, at least in part, for this behavior. He was a young man who I think was about 16, and he was on the street when and he was trying to get home when he heard a car toot, and it was a friend of his older brother. And this kid was driving a Mustang or something, and he said, "Hey man, you want to lift home?" "Yeah, sure, why not?" So they set off, and this kid was about 16 is watching this slightly older boy driving. He's getting very nervous because he's really crashing through the streets at high speed and driving very dangerously. But he doesn't say anything. So then once they've reached this straight bit between a couple of traffic lights, he takes it up to about 80 through a built-up area. An old woman steps out who's pushing a wheelchair, or a pram, I should say, with a child in it. It's too late to stop. This young man takes them out. They go flying over the back of the hood. And the response was this simple. This young man who was driving looked ahead, didn't look anywhere else, and he just said, 10 points. And he kept going. 10 points. Just killed a woman and a baby. And when the police interviewed them both later, they decided that the young man who'd accepted the lift was in no way culpable. He hadn't encouraged the behavior or anything else. But they said to him, do you think that it was computer games have influenced this nutcase? And the young man was saying, well, maybe he's just an American.
I mean, again, I have to go back to the fact that lad has done that. With there's got to be something wrong with him. There's a damage to his psyche there, because it doesn't. Out of the tragedies that you can pick out, it doesn't. For the millions upon millions that play these games that have grown up with them, it doesn't affect these people in the same way. So there's a lot of contributing factors. The fact that couldn't be part of the problem, that's obviously fed something in his imagination that made sense to him. Again, I deal with a lot of lads with mental issues, and they will talk to you in a very articulate fashion about a very matter-of-fact thing that is completely wrong. I watched one fella talk on the phone for 10 minutes, asking all questions like, is mum back from work yet? She's still at the airport, blah, blah, blah. And he has no credit on his phone, but he had a 10-minute conversation. So something makes sense to these people, and for us to try and understand it, you can't. You won't understand it.
All in all of it is, have you ever heard of a story like that?
Of what, sorry?
Have you ever heard of a story like that come out of any other country? Because I've never heard of a story like that come out of Britain or Europe or anywhere else in the world. There does seem to me to be latent criminality, which I've talked about in my film, right at the very end. I mean, that little man at the very end of my film who says, we all go to the racetrack, we all do the numbers, we all cheat a little bit. Do you know what I mean? I know exactly what he means. The street in America is dirty. And they are brought up to believe that the only way to survive in America is to be Norman Bates. That's the trouble with America. It's the Bates Motel. Being a psycho is pretty much de rigueur.
Again, Francis, going back to your research, it's since Kennedy was killed, whatever Kennedy was or linked to, that he was probably the last fella who wouldn't have took America down this route. And since then, they've been on steroids. I always use an analogy that for the UK, anyway, that when America sneezes, about 8 to 10 years later, we catch the cold. I can see where the militarisation of our police force has come along in leaps and bounds, modelling themselves on what they're promoting from America, because you've got policemen opening yards and going into somebody's private property, and a dog will come wagging its tail, and they pulled the gun and shot it, said, "I was in fear of my life." Now that is then linked with things like, I don't know if you've heard this, Francis, but there's a court case a few years back where a fella got turned down for the New York Police Department because he had an IQ of 120, and it was too high. They didn't want anybody with an IQ over 95 because you can follow instructions and orders, but you won't question whether you should.
Yes.
And that is what is happening to our police force.
Yes, well, you see, that's Paul. Again, you make a great point, because the public, some of the public do not know about at all, I think, is the vetting procedure for police officers. A lot of people don't know that if you want to be a police officer, one of the most important questions they ask you is, what kind of things do you read? What's your day-to-day diet in terms of, you read The Guardian, The Express, The Telegraph, The Daily Mirror, and so on, whatever. And if, when you're asked this, you put in the box that you read, like, I don't even know if the New Statesman still exists, but if you read The Guardian or The Independent or something like that, they will not let you be a police officer. If you read The Sun or some other Murdoch rag, or The Express or the Daily Mail, something conservative, that's fine. And if, as you say, you have no mind at all, that's fine. But that's the kind of people who they take into the police forces, people who really are meant
they're psychologically profiling people.
Yeah, psychological profiling.
That's what they're doing, because they're doing it in all public sector. And the younger ones that are joining are going on what they call fast track, which is they go up the grades as quick as they want to, but they've got to be able to say yes, 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 yes to everything. And that is linked in with, the whole common purpose type stuff that's been going on, where all this is now reached into public sectors, which there are no genuine public sectors anymore, because the privates have already reached into them. It's not just the NHS, the police, it's the prison service, it's everything, the fire service. John was actually talking about, and one of my mates is a serving fireman, and I asked him whether he knew anything about this, and John was saying that the police and the fire service are going to be amalgamated. Now, he's not heard anything like that yet, but you can see that this agenda is being pushed, but you can always see it if you pull your face out of one eyelid. That's the whole point. Stop reading this stuff and actually care about your family, about your kids, because I know people will fight to death for their children. You will take nothing off them, but you put a corporation or a bank in front of these people, and they go. They don't know what to do. And I found out the hard way. I've took some kickings up and down in court. Doesn't matter that you're right. It really doesn't, because the system and the agenda that they're pushing. I mean, we just seem to have been pussified. There's no fight in people. They'll fight if I take a Mars bar off somebody, they'll fight me for it. But somebody can come and take a house with no authority whatsoever, and we just bow down to these people. And that is the awakening, what you're talking about, Francis, where the tide is turning. That's where I see people having enough, because you can't keep trying to pay a debt off that you can't pay. This every time, all these people with principles that say, I pay my bills. Oh, that's great. But every time you pay your bill, you make the national debt worse, because you're trying to pay debt with more debt. That's impossible. It's a definition of insanity. So at some point you've got to break up, haven't you?
Something that just occurred to me that I did want to ask you about, Francis. I saw quite a disturbing article somebody shared over the weekend. I believe it was in the UK Independent, and it was a very short clip of an interview with a man I believe is a good friend of yours, John McAfee.
Well,
McAfee was saying that they poisoned him, and
well,
he's
John,
disappeared.
just to make that clear, John McAfee did call me at home,
Mhm.
but he wasn't very forthcoming. And at the time, I wasn't sure if he was a good guy or not. I think that what he's been doing with Bitcoin and what others like Richard Branson and the dragons from the Dragon's Den have been doing with Bitcoin, I think more and more and more that he's not playing on our team. Put it that way, and certainly he's not a friend of mine. I don't know him, so I'd better make that clear, because just to pretty quickly, I do think Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme. A lot of people have been talking about whether it is or not, and I'll explain what a Ponzi scheme is if you want. But I do think that it's a Ponzi scheme, and that people are going to get ripped off and lose a lot of money. Sorry to interrupt so long. So please go on.
No problem. Yeah, if you'd like to explain a Ponzi, I'm sure a lot of our readers are aware, but for those who aren't, if you want to go ahead and explain a Ponzi.
Well, the thing is that Ponzi was a real man. He was an Italian immigrant. And it's just that what I'd like people to understand about Bitcoin is this. You see, a Ponzi scheme is, I come to you, to Paul, to lots of people that you know, and I say, I've got a surefire scheme for making money. Shares, stock market, whatever it is, it's a surefire scheme. And I win your confidence. And let's say that you give me £1,000 and you know 1,000 other people. So there's then 1 million, okay? So what you do is you take the 1 million, and when the next person comes along, you take a bit of that, let's say 2,000, and them having invested 1,000, you immediately give them another 1,000. So they've made £2,000. They've doubled their money. They think, but they haven't doubled their money. I'm using your money to pay the next man. So what he does is he says, ooh, I've doubled my money. So he tells other people. So then they come along and they put in £1,000. So you then select different people. You make it appear that they've doubled their money by using the money that other people have put in. Am I making this clear enough?
Pyramid scheme.
Yeah, some people call it a pyramid scheme. People are not making real profits. What you're doing is you're taking the money that's already there. You're using A's money to pay B, and then using B and C and D to pay A, and you're shifting this money around to make it appear like the money is made when it isn't. It's just a trick. And this keeps going and going and going. The amount of people who are greedy and want to double their money keep jumping in. And sometimes pyramid schemes like this have gone on to be 10 million, hundreds of millions, even billions large. But all the way through, the Ponzi, the man who's running it, he knows that it's just one big trick. So what he does is he waits until there's a really huge nest egg there, say 100 million. Then he takes it all, cashes it in, and everybody is left with nothing. And that's a Ponzi scheme. And to me, Bitcoin can't be anything else, because all wealth, this is the most basic axiom of economics, has to be based on something with true value. John McAfee says it's all about Bitcoin mining. Well, what's he mining, for crying out loud? He's not mining tin. He's not mining gold. He's not mining copper or bauxite. He's not mining something Which,
just another make-believe currency to me, Francis.
well,
It's just another make-believe currency, something that we've always used in different things.
yeah,
People back up the wrong tree. They want remedies there.
yeah. Well, you know, I hope I've been able to explain that simply, because I do think, you see, people will say, oh, well, hang on, Mr. Conolly, I did make some money and then I cashed in the Bitcoin and I'm out of it now. And well, yes, while it's going on,
Yeah.
that can happen. But when it collapses, you lose all of your money. And just recently, it's been, you know, a lot in the papers about Bitcoin being incredibly volatile, the price flying up and down, and nobody understanding why. To me, the reason is that, you know, a lot of people are getting worried about it. One day they're selling, and then the next day somebody, you know, thinks he spies an opportunity for profit, so he jumps back into the fishbowl. There's one little saying that my parents taught me when I was a kid that I've never forgotten: "Fools rush in where angels fear to tread." Very true.
Oh, absolutely. That is very true, Francis. I'd just like to take you back to one thing you said there. You said that every currency must be backed by something of value. I'd just like to raise the issue of sterling. What's that backed by? It says, I promise to pay, and it used to say the word, however many pounds sterling. That word sterling has gone now, so you can't cash it in for silver. What's it backed by?
Well, the thing is, Andy, this is a rich nation because we really do own gold reserves, and we really do have oil wells, and we really do have a manufacturing base that really does make cars, washing machines, motor scooters, cycles, clothes, everything that have real value. If you go out tomorrow and make a bacon sandwich, or lots of bacon sandwiches, and stand there in a little hut and say to a workman who's in a, you know, over the street in a factory, do you want a bacon sandwich? There's every chance he'll pay you for it. And if you've got an oil well and you say, look, I've got some oil here, you can siphon it into petrol and put it in your car. Would you like some of that? He'll pay you for it. And there are people who will pay you for gold watches. And all of these things make the British economy have real wealth. And that is what our currency is based upon. And that's why our currency is worth so much in comparison to the rest of the world. Well, there was a time when the Italian lira, I think at one stage it reached, or was it something like 11,000 lira to the pound, and you had to have millions of lira to even buy a suit of clothes. You see what I mean? You know, our wealth is based upon real wealth. All wealth has to be. I'm still waiting for the day that somebody says to me, Bitcoin is real, and it's real wealth, because its wealth is based upon this. I say it's just based upon confidence. And, you know, wealth can be. I say it's just based upon a shared belief between the people who invested in it that it's worth something. But that belief will evaporate just like that. And if it did, and everybody pulled their money out of Bitcoin, then Bitcoin would be worth nothing.
That's my sentiments about what Andy was talking about sterling. All the wealth that you were talking about there is gone, Francis. It's all in private hands. It doesn't belong to anybody in the public. The only wealth this country has is this, ours. The fact that we're creditors, that's the only reason this economy works. You are promising to pay for everything at all times. You cannot pay for anything. There's that piece of paper that says, I promise to pay. That is it. There is nothing. That's why people have got to wake up to what is actually going on, what politics is all about. Voting for politics, voting for parties, not going to change anything. It's insanity. Everything. You were talking about an awakening and the tide turning. That's the sticking point. That's where people are at. I can tell people They're not liable to pay for these bills because they can't pay for them. It's a debt-based economy. You're a creditor. They understand all that, but they still pay. And some people are struggling to pay, and some people are having their own certain effort. It's the wealth is all in these people's private hands. If we could live in, I shudder to use the word because it always makes people recoil, but we've done all the other isms. There's only utopianism that we haven't tried in our history, is what we know of. That would mean you would go and do your job for nothing to society to contribute to whatever it is for everything that you want. We've got. We have that. People say, oh, it's human nature. They always turn greedy. Blah, blah, blah. No, people aren't. If you put two kids together without any other interruptions, majority of the time they will get on, they will share. Yes, they'll fall out, but they will share. You touched on the point, Francis, about the dog eat dog stuff. All that kind of stuff. That is getting into those children, and that's what causes the greediness. Kids aren't generally born like this. I know people whose children are, I would say they're model parents to me, because I don't class myself as that. Far from it. I had all my own issues. But these people created a family that these kids are turned up to A-star students. You would take them everywhere. It's about what is happening to the society and what this agenda is and who these people are in charge, who controls all that information as well. It's all being directed. And if you keep following that path of direction, well, we've been down the path. We know where it goes. It leads to genocide. It leads to control. It leads to slavery instead of the voluntary slavery that we're in.
There's one bit of information that I might just add there. And Andy, I don't know if you've heard of Michael Lewis. Do you know that name?
Name rings a bell, but I'm not sure why.
The thing is, he's the most well-known author, pretty much in America at the moment. And he's very popular with people who are greedy, trying to look into money-making schemes and all the rest of it, because his big point, and it's something that I've always felt was true, is that nobody understands the financial markets. Now, I agree with him, the one exception being the oligarchs themselves. The Jewish bankers who've been controlling the global economy for getting on for 200 years now, inevitably they're running it for their own sake. And they, I think that in this entire world, there's only a few hundred men who really completely understand how economics, how macroeconomics, global economics works.
Here's the thing, wasn't it Henry Ford who said it's as well that the American public do not understand how the banking system works, because if they did, there would be revolution before morning.
Yes, exactly.
Following on from that, my observation is that there are a small group of people who seem to have got a handle on an awful lot of how this system operates and how it keeps us in this state of perpetual and willing slavery. And those guys, men and women, are doing a great job of doing the research, sharing the information that they've got on a quiet basis. Most of them haven't got a terribly high profile, and they are getting the information out to people. Now, whether it's spreading quick enough to have an effect that's going to be positive within this system or not, I really don't know. Dave Von Kleist, the host of Power Hour radio show in the States, when he came on our show, he said, we've really got two options. We've got to have a knock them down, drag them out, bloody revolution, or we've got to wait till all the shit's over and see what's left. And he said, in his way of looking at it, we're probably a bit too late for the first one. So I don't know what you think about that.
Well, the thing is, right from sort of like my second interview on, that was with Justin Stelman on the Justin Stelman show. Inevitably, this whole question of revolution came up, and I put it to him. How is this going to happen? And he put the same thing to me, and the frustration, of course, being America, because they're armed, and this whole thing about the Second Amendment that they protect. I mean, Jim Jeffries has had a good laugh about this. People always coming up and getting in his face and saying, you can't change the Second Amendment. And I want to keep my gun, and yet they won't do anything positive with their guns. A lot of people have asked me, isn't it going to be a simple case that nothing's going to change until the day that people find the guts to fight? But I still hold out hope that maybe we can get there without bloodshed. And the reason is because at the end of the day, Soviet communism did collapse. Now, why did it collapse? Yes, there was this catalyzing event where you had Chernobyl, and the Russians found themselves in a position where they were sat at home, and the Russian media was saying to them, there's absolutely nothing wrong. And acid rain was bringing nuclear waste down on their heads and irradiating their children. And after that, it's very clear that the Russian people, all of them, turned around and said, well, look, come on. We just can't go on with the system anymore. It's a joke. There's the Russian state media saying there's absolutely nothing wrong in the country, and we've just had a nuclear accident, and there's nuclear waste spilling all over the Russian countryside. We've got to change. We don't have any choice anymore. Now, whether or not it's going to take some kind of catalyzing event in order for that to happen to us, I'm not sure. This doctor who I've been telling you about, I put it to him that at the end of the day, we see people now smoking in doorways. You naughty man. You can't smoke in a bar, in a Chinese restaurant, anywhere. You know what I mean? People have to smoke in doorways. And why is that? Because the doctors, whatever you may think of them, as a political lobby, got together and said, okay, we're not having any more passive smoking. I'm not going to go to work, because this is what was getting to the doctors, the surgeons in particular. They were going to work and having to cut off people's legs over and over and over and over again, just because they were, riddled with smoking and health problems that came from smoking. And they couldn't face it anymore, having to go to work and just cut limbs off because people had, been ruining their health through smoking. And so, it took a while, but finally there was this, this wave that they couldn't resist that said that we have to have change as regards smoking. And, as I said earlier, there are so many people now. Everywhere I go, people encourage me. Everywhere I go, I get patted on the back. I get, lauded everywhere I go. And everywhere I go, I meet really intelligent, well-read people who know that terrorism is phony, who know that the child abuse is being covered up, who know what, just how sick and dirty and corrupt to the marrow of its bones the establishment and the media is. And I do feel that if we just keep pushing, and it may take one day a riot. Perhaps one day, we're going to have to see something like we saw in the poll tax riots. That kind of thing where we saw people spearing police cars and everything. Maybe it'll come to that one day. I'm not sure, but I do think.
My experience, Francis, I think with the poll tax thing, I think families, because the bigger the family, the more poll tax who lived there anyway. They were being screwed down so much, people suffered, and it the way I look at it is, until it happens to you, you don't know what you will do. Yeah. I didn't think that I could do what I did, but I did it, and I'm glad I did it. because it helped me to understand what's going on. A lot of people won't act until something happens to them. So I think you're right about that.
See, the problem there, though, is that the poll tax riots prove to me that, well, as with America, that the whole problem stems from selfishness. You know, it was self-interest that got people on the streets fighting the police during the poll tax. And I'm glad that the poll tax rise happened, because it was then so plain that the true reason the Tory party exists, the true reason they hire psychopaths like Margaret Thatcher, is purely and simply to grind the public down under their heel forever, to hurt you, hurt you, and hurt you, and hurt you. This is why the royal family loved Maggie Thatcher and wanted her to have a state funeral, etc. Because as far as they're concerned, she did a great job with hurting the public. That's all they are there for. But at the end of the day, people pointed out that when the first time they had to try to have a poll tax, it was somewhere back in 1490 or something, there were riots, and the public wouldn't put up with it. And all these years later, they try to bring another poll tax in, and the same thing happens. And the public won. They won. We won that battle. The whole thing about the poll tax was forgotten because people showed that they were prepared to fight to change things. And the rich know that if everybody is behind a single idea, you see, this is why they're desperately trying to hold my film down and stop it from being translated into French and Italian and Spanish, as people want all the time, because they know that my movie alone could sort of unify the whole world behind a single idea. And that's what terrifies them, you see. That's why they're trying so hard to stop me from getting my film translated and from making more films, because it could create a sort of a universal monoglot situation.
Because you articulate it in such a way that when they look at those periods of history and what has gone on, and if they start putting two and two together, that is going to cause that chain reaction, which I can see. We keep talking about this tide that is turning. Again, 10 years ago, I was on my own talking about this stuff. Now there's thousands of people who are talking to me who's doing it. Not talking about it, not thinking about it, they're doing it. And these people have got balls of being put into positions where they've got nothing else. It's fight or flight. And, it was like, I use another analogy back to, I think it was 86 when Romania deposed Ceausescu. Nobody knew that was coming until him and his wife were swinging from lampposts. Nobody knew. No media, nothing. No, this could happen, anything. Boom, there they are swinging. And that is going to be that. Something's got to give. They can't keep doing what they're doing because they're not even hiding it anymore. They're not even bothering.
Have you ever heard the expression that was the head that wears uneasy lies the head that wears the crown?
Yes.
That is probably an ideal note to finish on, Francis, because we've come to the end of the 2 hours. I think we've had an absolutely fascinating discussion. I hope the listeners have enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed it. And I hope you've enjoyed it, Paul, because we're going to have to close down for now. But I do hope we'll be able to get you back on some point in the not too distant future. I know you're a busy man, Francis, but I'd like to wish you all the best with all your projects that you're working on. And thank you for coming and talking to us tonight.
It's been a great pleasure, and it's nice to meet you too, Paul. I'm glad we met at last. I did wonder who Paul Webster was.
Also, you have heard me. So, do you know what? I get that a lot. Thanks very much, Francis. You're a genuine man, and I've really enjoyed your work.
Well, I look forward to next time.
Take care, pal. Thank you.
Just for all our listeners, there won't be a show tomorrow night because I believe we've got no guests lined up. And while Jason's very much under the weather, I'm not in the best of health, but I kind of keep plodding along. Aid's laid up as well. So really, I suppose, Webby...
There's only me that's working.
Using you as a carer, really. don't I?
Yeah, well, I'm used to that as well, mate. Don't worry.
We'll be back next week. The information will be on the website, Facebook, usual places. Unfortunately, I've had to delete all the user accounts on the Raconteurs News website. We've got a few issues with GDPR compliance, that new European reg that's come in. But I'm going to be working on the website this week, and you should be able to sign up for an account so that you can receive the newsletter and log into the chat and all that sort of thing by the end of the week or early next week. So thanks for listening, folks. Please like and share the broadcast. That's how we get the news out. And we'll be back next week.